Real estate agents should get paid less. Yes, that's correct. Real estate agents should be getting paid less. At least that's what the new Consumer Federation of America report came out and said today, that moving forward, starting August 17th with the new NAR changes and how we do business as a real estate community, how buyers and sellers operate, that things should 100% be different. And I agree with that. Things are going to be different. Things should be different. Before we get too far into this, my name is Brandon Snyder. I am a real estate professional out of the Houston area. My wife and I, we run a team together. We've been doing business long enough to see multiple changes, and this is nothing new. But I wanted to give you some context. So I was reading Inman today, which I enjoy reading Inman because Inman really takes multiple accounts and multiple concepts and ideologies, and I really get to enjoy that and look at it, and I really look to them as my news source for real estate content. So this report comes out, and the Consumer Federation of America, which is, I really like them because they do for the most part look out for the consumer, came out and they had some proposed criteria for seller and buyer contracts. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, starting August 17th, some things have changed. Commissions, even though they've never really been not negotiable, they are really heavily negotiable now. They're being encouraged to be negotiable. If you are a buyer working with an agent, you need to have a representation agreement going into showing a home, which we'll get into that in a little bit of what is probably the best way, because there's a couple new ways you can do it now. And sellers cannot, the agent cannot, for the seller, display the commission on the MLS, which is a big change. It stops people from, steering and not showing homes that really need to be shown, and really doing these things that most of us don't practice this, but there are quite a few agents. The whole reason we're in this mess is because agents decided to do some things they shouldn't. And, we're here anyway, so we're going to figure it out together. So if you are just a normal consumer watching this, I highly recommend you just really take this for a practical guide on how to maneuver moving forward. We've been preparing for these changes for a few months as a team, and I will tell you that most of our conversations are really designed to educate and inform clients. We believe that everyone we work with is going to become a client, and we treat them that way. We treat them with respect, with an equitable relationship, and I really believe that the way we do business is how everyone should do business, but that is not always the case. So there's going to be some things that you need to know about, and the Consumer Federation of America brought out some guidelines and hey, maybe this is how you can do business with your real estate professionals. And they came out and said, hey, you should offer 2% to a buyer's agent, and if you're a seller, you should also offer 2% to each side of the relationship. Now, commissions have always been negotiable. The real highlight here in this language is that as a buyer, you may potentially have to pay an agent if the seller does not want to pay commission. And that was the big change coming out of all this stuff, was that in most states, they weren't really practicing this. At least in Texas, we've always kind of had this in our agreements. Hey, if the seller doesn't pay, or they don't pay the full commission that we agree upon here, that you would make up the difference or potentially pay it. Really never got enforced. I've never enforced it, but it was something that was already in there. But other states didn't have this. So getting this kind of guideline from the CFA really tells you, hey, as a buyer, you're already scrounging together pennies and everything to buy a home. But if you are going to have to pay for services of a buyer's agent, then this is what we recommend. And 2% in Arkansas is a lot different than 2% in New York. And I think this is one of my key highlights here, is that I think that there are different states with different price points and kind of how much action has to be done in certain markets. We just got out of a market that was very hot for multiple years, where there were multiple offers and agents didn't really have to do anything, besides prepare multiple offers. And there was a lot going into that. And I want to clarify, we did work a lot during the COVID market. But, there were a lot of phone it in agents, and that's why we're here. So I want to give context to this conversation that if you're looking at what should I be paying someone, I think it's relative to the amount of work that they put in. When we look at hiring a contractor to put in floors or do something trades related, I'm always looking at labor costs and how much it's going to cost for them to do the work. The materials are always there, right? They cost money. The house is always going to be there. It's going to cost money. But how much work is your real estate professional putting in on your behalf, and how much is that worth? Now, an agent will be able to demonstrate that to you. And my whole goal behind this conversation is to really get you to understand that you should be sitting down with a real estate professional and not only just interviewing agents in general, but you should also be doing a consultation. If your agent that you sit down with is not doing a consultation with you, then that is not the agent for you. We have been prepping for months, like I said. Our buyer's consultation can take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it's done over dinner, lunch, coffee, whatever. But that really allows us as a team to provide that value to the client that allows us to get into a relationship. We view real estate as a relationship-driven business, and we will continue to treat it that way. So that being said, I really want to advise here that I think in terms of the CFA and how they're really acknowledging commissions, I think you should take a look at it as yes, that's a good baseline, but if someone's putting in more work or they're doing something extra, then they really need to be compensated for that. On the seller side, I think that this is a really bad kind of take, and here's why I say that. The average agent is just going to take photos, slap it on the MLS, put a sign in the yard, and call it a day and hope it sells. The more experienced agents, and I'll get to this because the CFA actually talks about hiring an experienced agent and what that looks like, but the more experienced agents are putting more marketing dollars into your home than sometimes you would. And a lot of people don't really see that. They just see, they put it on the MLS, they put a sign in the yard, they're calling it a day. On average, our team in the Houston market spend anywhere from $800 to $1,000 before we even hit the market on marketing. And for the most part, we hadn't really asked for any type of compensation, reimbursement if the house didn't sell or whatever. And I don't really plan to change that. But what I will say is that a lot of people don't understand the type of process that we go through to get the house to the market and to show it in its best light possible. So while these are guidelines and what the CFA is really just kind of giving suggestions, they're not really set in stone. The commissions are negotiables. There's no law, right? I think that it's important that we really analyze this from who's putting in the most work to do the job for me, and should they be compensated for that? I think that there are going to be people out there who are going to do the cheapest job, and they're always going to be people like that. We've had the discount brokers and the 1% and the things like that, and really what we've noticed is that you kind of get the service of that, and it's not that, well, you need to pay us more because we're not those guys. It's, well, I think that our value is higher because we do more than most of the other guys out there. I think that the idea behind this is that, hey, you should be really paying attention to what you pay for. And they say it later in this article that they give some baselines for this is what you should really be looking out for when you're trying to hire an agent. They say vet the agent. And we're in the referral-based business. I mean, we get referrals from friends, family, people, past clients that we know, and you should really be interviewing the people that you get referred to and say, hey, like, how many people have you helped this past year? If you're a seller looking to hire an agent for a listing, how many listings do you have right now? How many listings have you taken this year? What is your listing to buyer ratio? And that's something that's important. If you're a buyer, hey, what do you know about new construction? Like, how can you help me in that regards? There's a lot of things that you should be asking. And we do this in our consultation. We actually go through a list of questions, commonly asked questions. But in reality, a lot of people are so excited about buying a house, they don't really go through the process. And an agent should take you through that process. And I think that's what's important here, is that the process has to be done. What do their reviews look like? Are they getting favorable reviews on Zillow, on HAR, which is our MLS? You know, if you're watching this in a different state, you have an MLS. They have reviews that you can look at. What do their Google reviews look like? What does their internet presence look like? What does their social media presence look like? Are they just posting things and saying how amazing they are, but are they really, you know, closing homes, and are they doing the things that they should be as a real estate professional? I think these are important. Are they talking about the contracts up front? Are they saying, hey, this is what's going to have to happen? You know, especially with this NAR change, are you going to provide the forms and talk to them about, hey, this is what it looks like. This is what it's going to cost for my services. So I think that is really important. The CFA is really intent on, you know, you have to do more research now as a consumer to really pay attention to see if that agent is the right fit for you. And I like that. I think that that's really healthy. We've been needing that for a while. There's a lot of agents who phone it in, you know, or they don't get on their phones at all. And that's one of the biggest challenges is, you know, we hear that a lot from people who maybe aren't working with their agent anymore, or, you know, whatever that case may be. Well, I didn't hear from my agent, so I'm not working with them anymore. Well, what does that, you know, and then the expectation conversation happens. Well, what do you expect communication wise? Like what can we do to make sure that we communicate in an effective manner? I really like that. I like that, you know, people are asking the questions that need to be asked. Like, you need to be interviewed. And I think a lot of agents got lazy. They weren't willing to be interviewed. They're like, oh no, you know, Susie sent you to me, so I'm great. I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Well, in reality, agents got complacent and lazy, and this is why we are where we are. The last thing that I'll note on this CFA recommendation list is that they said don't sign contracts to pay the agents just to see a home. So this is something I was talking about earlier that I was going to get to, and I'm really conflicted on this one. So there's basically two forms now, and we joke in the real estate industry, this is the Zillow form. Zillow has a business platform that really allowed for a buyer to say, hey, I want to see this home, and this is when I'm going to see it. And the agent would have to show up and show them the home without any type of consultation, any type of representation, to show up, show them the home, and try and get a representation later. Well, with the NAR lawsuit change, we have to have representation going into a home. So all the states, all the brokerages have really come out with the one pager. This is we're going to show you this home or the next 5 homes, and you're going to pay us per home or a flat fee total. And in theory, I understand where this is coming from. You want to be compensated for your time. If you're driving to show 10 homes across the city in the greater Houston area, 10 homes could be a 2-hour difference from each other, or it could be a total 8-hour day. And I understand where people think they may be wasting their time, especially if someone, they're like, I don't want to work with you, and I want to look at homes. So I understand where that comes from and why there should be an idea of compensation there, but I'm actually in agreement with the CFA on this. I think that the single property, showing fee or whatever it is, I think that it's really bad for the industry. It doesn't create a relationship between the consumer and the agent, which is the most important thing. Because if you're going to pay 2.5%, 3% to an agent in case the seller doesn't pay the compensation, then that agent should be working for you. This doesn't create an opportunity for agents to work on your behalf. This is a very transactional idea that, hey, you're going to pay me per house to see these homes. What I would much rather do, and what we are doing, is, hey, before we go see these homes, I want to sit down with you. I want to have a consultation. Let's talk about what this looks like. Because then we're also talking about how we're going to get pre-approved, who we're going to work with, what inspections look like, what earnest money. I mean, there's people who've never bought a home who are just going to go see a home, and they've gone to L, but they haven't done A, B, and C. And so I really think that this is going to be kind of a sticking point. If I was going to, and I don't have a crystal ball, I don't do crystal ball economics, but if I was going to put an educated guess, I think the single property form is probably going to change. It'll probably be one of the first things to change in the next 6 months. There's going to be a lot of learning and growing from this process, from the NAR lawsuit. I don't think in any way, shape, or form this is just going to be the way it is for the next couple of years. I think there's going to be revisions, there's going to be changes. And so it's really important that, this report specifically from the CFA, I respect what they're saying here. I think there is just a guideline, a base point, really take it case by case scenario. Again, the whole goal at the end of the day is sellers, we're going to go ask for the compensation from the sellers. So I think something that this article really fails to articulate is that part of the offer is going to be, hey, I would like you to pay my agent. And if you don't, then our offer may change because I have to pay my agent now. And so I think that that's going to be really important moving forward, is paying attention to that and seeing how many sellers are actually paying their agents. Because a lot of this stuff is coming out. It's like, well, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have to pay an agent. Well, if the seller's paying the compensation, then this is, really nothing to worry about. But it is something that it has to be set in stone ahead of time. We have to determine between the agent and the buyer if they don't pay, if the seller doesn't pay, what are we going to be responsible for? And that's where this article is coming from. So anyway, if you have questions about any of this stuff that we've talked about in this video, about the NAR lawsuit, what it looks like to be a homeowner in today's market, anything about Houston real estate or any real estate across the country, feel free to comment, feel free to like and subscribe, and we can definitely connect and talk about these things. I'm not afraid of these changes. I don't want the consumer to be afraid of these changes. There's a lot of fear-mongering going on. It's an election year. Really, it comes down to facts and education. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.